Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Profluence Sports. Super excited for this one today, especially with the Winter Olympics coming up. We have Jill Brabec on from Nordic Combined. So, Jill, really appreciate you hopping on, and I'm excited to speak with you today.
Thanks. I'm really excited to be here.
So let's
This
kick
is
it
my
off.
first podcast ever, by the
Let's
way.
go. These are my
So be
favorite.
nice to me.
These are my favorite ones, and you'd be surprised all the times that I've had people with their first one. I'm always shocked of like, how haven't you been on 20 podcasts already? Like, you speak about it so elegantly. So high standard to live up to, not to put pressure on you before we roll into this. But I guess kick us off, right? Tell us what Nordic Combined is. How did you get involved? What inspired you to step into it? I think that's always a good place to start of like, who you are, how it led in, and what is it, just for listeners to gain some context.
Yeah, for sure. What Nordic Combined is this really cool winter sport. Basically, it requires part daredevil and part glutton for punishment. So it's a combination of two sports. And the first piece is if you've ever skied a black diamond or a double black diamond, picture yourself pointing your skis straight down a double black diamond, right? So you're going to go as fast as you can. The speeds get up to about 55 miles per hour, straight downhill. Then you launch yourself into the air and you are trying to fly as far as you can. And the typical length is about the length of a football field. And then you're also trying to land in a telemark, which is kind of 1 foot in front of the other. So you get distance and style. So that's the first part.
I'm gonna do something we do every now and then. We like to pull up videos because some people will watch these. Boom. All right. Do you see
cool.
this?
Yeah.
And I mean, you see it right here. The coolest sport you never knew about, Nordic Combined. So what a pleasure to have you here today. All right. So they're coming down.
So
and the goal is
you're racing down. Go ahead.
Interesting. So then this is part of it as well?
Yep. Although that's a summer version. So the winter version is on a cross-country ski track. And basically what you're going to do at that point is you're going to put on your skinny skis, and then you're going to enter the what we fondly call the pain cave, because based on where you landed, based on your distance in the ski jumping part, you're then lined up to have a cross-country ski race to determine the final winner. So you are just going to go all out as fast as you can against your other competitors. And yeah, first one across the finish line is the winner. So it's kind of, it's intense in multiple ways. And that's the thrill of the sport, is you get the power and the focus and the intensity of a ski jump, right? And that split second of getting everything right to get off of a jump. And then you completely switch gears and you move into an endurance mode where you are just gutting it out on a race course against competitors, using strategy to race, and the thrill of a race. And we all love a good race. So to me, it's kind of the best of both sports, where you get this excitement of watching a ski jump, and then you get that thrill of watching a race and watching competitors trying to figure out who's, when to go, when to make the move. And yeah, at the end, you hope that you've made it right, and usually it's a sprint to the finish. So it's pretty fun. It's a pretty cool sport to watch.
That's cool.
Been around forever. It was an original Olympic sport. 1924, it was one of the first. So yeah, a lot of legacy there.
It's amazing. And I know we took a little change of direction there. I had to see it. As soon as you started talking about it, I was like, all right, I got to see this.
So what does it look like? Are you gonna throw yourself off the ski jump?
Unfortunately, I'm not. I've never, because my background's basketball. In the winters, I was never skiing, snowboarding, no winter sports, just because I never wanted to get hurt or didn't have the time. So I've actually I've snowboarded once. It was terrible. I've tubed a bunch of times, but I've never actually been skiing. So I don't think I'm going to jump to that, but I'll shoot it to some of my friends that do a lot and say, hey, you should try this. But, give us like, how'd you get into it? Nordic Combined, give us the overview from that lane now.
So, I live in a ski town called Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and we are crazy lucky that we have right in our downtown, we have a ski hill. I mean, we have a big, large ski hill called Steamboat Ski Resort, but we actually have this little local hill called Howelson Hill that is right in downtown. And that's where the Steamboat Springs Winter Sports Club trains. And it has ski jumps. It has multiple ski jumps all the way from bump jump, 5 meter bump jump, all the way up to we actually still have a 124-meter jump, but mostly we use a 100-meter jump. And you can see them on Main Street in Steamboat. So I have 2 kids, 2 daughters, and when they were young, like most parents, you're trying to entertain them and keep them out of trouble. And I shipped them off to try some various winter sports, and they did everything under the sun, and they fell in love with Nordic Combined. So that was their after school program for many days, where they were over at Howelson Hill jumping and skiing, and they both kind of took to it. So yeah, so like a typical parent, you kind of get involved and you get sucked in. And I kind of ended up in this position when some things changed and we kind of had a changeover and lost some funding and some leadership. So yeah, that's kind of where that's came
Yeah, so
from.
give us the overview of Nordic Combined USA, what you're doing there as an org, what your day to day as Jill, the president, looks like. I think that'd be helpful as well.
So most people have heard of US Ski and Snowboard, right? So US Ski and Snowboard is what they call the national governing body. It oversees the majority of ski sports in the US. And technically, Nordic Combined is under US Ski and Snowboard. It has not been funded, direct funded by US Ski and Snowboard for a number of years. And so Nordic Combined USA is sort of this side parallel running organization with US Ski and Snowboard. We run pretty closely with them, but we basically do the funding for the sport and a lot of the focusing more on development, strategy, and things like that from a broader perspective to grow the sport. So yeah, we spend a lot of time trying to unfortunately raise money because
The
it's an
joys of
expensive.
raising money, right?
Right. It is a never ending thing. And our athletes have to compete in basically 2 sports.
Mm.
So it's kind of that much more expensive and challenging to get them funded. But yeah.
So and I know one of the big initiatives you guys do is around, obviously, like you said, Nordic Combined, one of the oldest sports, but it is also the only Olympic sport without a women's event. Is that a big piece of initiatives? How do you guys think about that? Why is that? I mean, the deeper you dig into it, it seems to not really make sense.
Yeah. That's really been the big issue push. That's the part that keeps me up at night and has for the past couple of years. In 2022, IOC made a decision not to admit women's Nordic Combined, which means it's the only winter sport without a women's component. So yeah, that was pretty dramatic. And the question becomes, how do we get the IOC, the International Olympics Committee, to make what I'd call the right decision, but the decision to admit the women for 2030, right? So they will not compete in February, but it's all about now looking to the next 4 years, and they will make a decision largely based on this Olympics and whether to keep the sport entirely or get rid of the sport entirely or admit the women. So it's kind of all on the line.
So what goes into that decision? Like how do they, or do you not know, or what does that review process typically look like? Because you can see, like, just sidebar, like just had someone on the podcast that built the main pickleball league, and it's like, well, pickleball is not even an Olympic sport in the summer, obviously, but it's like it should be, right? Like how do you look at a Nordic Combined one that's in, but it's sort of like they might get rid of it completely, or they might add women's? Like, what do you even have any insight into any of that?
Yes and no. So it's one of those things where I wish I could be in that room when those discussions are happening, because I would like to better understand what's really going on behind the scenes. Out front, their decision or their announcement was based on viewership at the time, right? In 2022, viewership, basically commercial opportunity, diversity of podiums and participation. So how many countries participate and how many countries are doing well in the sport, which makes total sense. And move ahead, flash ahead 4 years. And right now, we've seen huge growth in that, right? So from 2022 to 2020, we now see, if you looked at the women's top 10, you would see at least 6 different countries in that top 10. The last podium, each podium has had 3 to 5 different countries in the fight for those podiums. So we're there. And hopefully now the trick is, how do we get the IOC to see that? And that's where, I wish we could tap all of the brain powers that are out there, because I think there's a lot of strategies to get that message across. But right now I think it's going to be viewership, which I think you've seen in all the other women's sports, right? What's the typical conundrum of women's sports? You can't get supporters if nobody watches it. Nobody can watch it if you don't have supporters. So that's, so I'm sure you've talked to other women's sports.
Yeah, no, and it's super interesting. And yeah, I'm always just curious of how an IOC and how you guys navigate that. Now, let's actually go back one step. And you might have to give I'll probably even need some context. And so I'm thinking, if I need it, probably everyone from a listener base will. But what is obviously the Olympics, that's the be all end all every 4 years. It's where, people that don't watch a Nordic Combined get excited to watch it for the most part. But what's everything in between? Are there World Cups? Are there World Championships? Are USA Women's, is it still like a thing? It's just they don't compete in the Olympics, but they train and do other stuff. What does it look like, a typical year, I guess?
Oh, yeah, totally. So Nordic Combined, both men and women, compete in World Cups. I believe that this year there are 11. Oh, that's not right. I think it's 18 World Cups. Okay. And they have a world championship every 2 years. So women's Nordic Combined has had 2 world championships that they've participated in. In fact, the U.S. was just off the podium in World Championships last year for women's Nordic Combined in 4th place. So almost on that podium. But yeah, so it is fully a sport, and those athletes are absolutely professional athletes, right? So they compete and they train 12 months of the year, and just like a professional athlete. And then they travel to the World Cups throughout the US. Most of them are in Europe.
Okay. And then you mentioned a lot of them have 2 things. Are a lot of them also competing in cross-country skiing events, and then also just traditional skiing? And then it's sort of like, hey, here's a cool hybrid, and you get a mix? Or they're just Nordic Combined, that's all they do, that's all they train for? Like Usain Bolt only trains for, a certain type of race, drawing a parallel. How does that look from the athlete standpoint?
Yeah, so they train for Nordic Combined. It looks a lot like training for cross country or training for ski jumping. And they certainly do train with some ski jumpers and some cross country. But because of the unique combination of needing both and having to be really strong in those 2 disciplines, it's a different training, and it's more focused on sort of balancing those 2 sports together. Yep.
But will they, and that's helpful context, will there be athletes that do both events at the Olympics? At least obviously we're just talking about the male side, unfortunately, but or is it very much if
it is very much its own sport? Yep.
Yeah. So you won't see a ton of crossover of someone doing, in snowboarding, they may be doing the half pipe and then they're doing something else. You'll see no, do you get what I'm asking?
Yeah, totally. And that was going to be the comparison. If you're watching some of those free ski events, you don't typically see somebody that's doing pipe, and then big air. They're usually focused on one or the other. Or, if you're a snowboarder, you do slalom, snowboard racing, you're not doing slopestyle. So Nordic Combined is the same, even though they do use those different sports, and it's its own thing. And so the athletes would not be competing in cross country or ski jumping at the
Got it.
Olympics. Um,
Got it. I guess I
yep.
was more saying, like, are there parallels where, like, if you're good at one, you might be good at this, but it seems like it's really like you have to be just good. Like, this is very special. Like, it's not a ton of parallels, which is interesting, right? Which is why it's such a big thing of, like, we don't want to lose this sport. And I
Yeah.
was curious of, like, the IOC's like, well, a lot of these athletes are also competing in other events at the Olympics. So, like, why do we need this? But no, like you're saying, they basically, like, they would come to the Olympics and they only compete in Nordic Combined, right?
Yeah.
Which is a big component of why you guys want to keep it and why you want to add women's sports, obviously. Now, obviously there's the World Cups and there's some of these things in between Olympics. Assuming is there college infrastructure, is there any youth infrastructure, are there any leagues or third party things? What else is there? Is it all really flowed through just Olympic type stuff?
So definitely a lot of youth, and that's that pipeline, right? So that's the important piece of it. And it's cool because the kids start with like little 5-meter jumps, what we fondly call the bump jump, and then they work themselves up to bigger jumps as they get older and more confident. So there's a lot of youth and competitions throughout the US. Typically, they're in winter sports areas. So Lake Placid, Park City, Steamboat Springs. A number of athletes are on their way right now to Ishpeming, Michigan, up in the UP to do a Nordic Combined competition. So winter sports areas, right, is kind of where they shine. No college level competitions, unfortunately, which is definitely a challenge. Makes it hard for athletes, right? You can't get a college scholarship. A lot of these athletes have to make a decision whether they want to go to a traditional college or go the World Cup circuit, and they can't really, so they have to make a decision. And yeah, I think that's why the Olympics is key to this, because it unlocks the door to a lot of the potential for the sport. There's definitely more commercial potential there. I mean, if you've watched the sport, I think there's a lot that can be done with it, and they're moving to making it more viewer friendly, right? And so we've been fooling around with ways. Viewership's changing, and I think you spend a lot of time talking about sports and viewership and media and how that all works. So you probably know better than I do what that looks like today. And that's what we're trying to move the sport to. But we've got to address the Olympic thing first. So once we get that, I think that opens the door. So leagues make a lot more sense. There's definitely some discussion in place with that and taking the sport to the next level.
Yeah, I'm very, at least personally, bullish on action sports, which I'm going to combine this into. As a whole, I think Gen Z and the younger ones like that thrill, and it's different, and it goes through ebbs and flows, and it seems like, and I've definitely seen it not knowing exactly fully what it is, and now it's this Olympics. Now that I had this conversation, I'm sure every time I turn the TV on, or like, it will just naturally flow. It's all I'll be seeing. Yeah, the reticular activated system, or the RAS, whatever they call it, where it's like once you're aware of something, you see it everywhere, which will be cool though. But I do remember seeing, you'll see clips of like NBC or whatever, like of them flying off of it. I guess and Jill, this has been amazing. I guess as we close this out, I think something cool would be, what's your favorite memory from the sport? What's an awesome moment you had, whether it is on the org side, whether it's with your daughters or you personally doing it, or whatever. I think that'd be a cool way to round this out.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I think right now, maybe because it's freshest, so my daughter's at the World Cup level, and in fact, in 2 weeks, I'm going to go watch her in Seefeld, Austria, to compete. And she's second in the world right now for women's Nordic Combined. So that's
That's awesome.
all exciting and thrilling. And of course, it's my kid, so I love all that. But this weekend, I went back to a youth event here in Steamboat with the 6 and 7 and 8-year-old and 10-year-olds that are just thrilled to be out there, and they love to jump and they love to race and they love to play. And to me, that's the heart of it. Like, I love sport because I love what it does and how it builds community. So that's the magic.
That's awesome. How obviously you have a personal motivation in this. How will your daughter take the Olympics, like knowing you work so hard, you want to like compete in it? How is that for them, knowing like they're so close but they're also not able to?
It's a little heart-wrenching,
Yeah.
to be really honest.
Yeah.
They love the sport, and each of the women that do the sport had to have that conversation with themselves about, okay, do I continue even though I know there's not the chance to be an
Yeah.
Olympian? And each of them made the decision that they love the sport enough to keep doing it. So I feel good about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
It's tough.
hard.
Yeah, I mean, you put your heart, soul, sweat, blood, tears, everything into it. So, yeah, the Olympics is awesome. So, I guess how can people learn more? How can people get involved? Where can we lead people to, at least of, awareness is step one, which I think we did today. And then, is it your website? Is it socials? Is it, where's a
Yeah.
good place to learn more?
Yes, so we are really focused on getting viewership. The IOC looks specifically at viewership during the Olympics. That's their number one focus. Number two will be also they'll be looking for all those other statistics that come along with it, right? So media engagement, social, and other competition views. Best way to do it is to follow us on social, which is Nordic Combined USA.org. We have a website. Signing up for emails is fabulous. I know that's so old fashioned, but it does allow us to get information out on how to watch and what we're doing to kind of move the sport forward. We don't send a lot of spam out. It's just really focused on the sport. So those would be the main things. And we're looking for partners to engage with the sport and help elevate that message. So I think reaching out
Yep.
through our website is probably the best, and it's
That's
Nordic
amazing.
Combined US.
Amazing. We'll have all that linked, and I really appreciate your time today, Jill. Excited to watch. Wish was able to watch your daughter. That would be really cool if we were able to. But hopefully, at the next cycle, we'll all work out and we'll make that happen. So thanks for your time today. This has been amazing. And you definitely got a viewer out of me and the people close to me. I'm excited to check it out this year. So it'll be good.
Thanks so much, Andrew. I appreciate it.